Yes, we are live on our Wednesday night call. It is June 14th, 2017. A pretty amazing time, man. We've already had about 14 people plug into this call, and it's already 8:51 p.m. This call goes about 5 hours. And what we're talking about is getting out of your own fucking hole, getting out of your shit. Stop blaming people for your problems. And the reason why we're doing this is because there was a post on the Austin Men's Development Board, I think today or yesterday, and it went up and it was talking about, man, my life sucks, and all I hear is you guys talk about fucking chicks and, getting laid and all this other stuff. And every once in a while, there's some advice on being a man and he got all pissed off, right? And the craziest thing about this, what's so awesome about it, is that if you look at actually the feedback he got, it's like really loving and welcoming and all this sort of stuff. And that's pretty cool. But here's the reality of it, people. The reality of it is that you got to get out of your shit. And whenever I'm blaming that much stuff for my problems that I want to get out of, then man, that's just another excuse, another hour, another minute, another whatever, probably another couple years of me talking shit instead of me getting out of it. All right. So I want to actually do this podcast to actually start highlighting some of the great benefits of what happens in this, what happens in what we do. So if you're listening to this on iTunes, watching it on YouTube or Stitcher, man, click the free stuff link down below. Get involved with what we're doing. Download some free stuff and better your life. We are a group of men that actually talk to each other. We're not just a fucking Facebook group. We're not just a YouTube comment. We're not just some likes and stars or any of that shit. What's actually happened over the past, since 2009, we've had this group, right? So what's happened is we've built this ecosystem of men that meet up and talk and hold each other accountable, or whatever you want to call it. It's not even that. We just sit there and talk and we say what's up, and we want to better our lives, and we tell the journey of that, whether that has to do with what's happened on this call so far, which is discuss how an artist creates his stuff, to somebody getting an accomplishment in one of his lawsuits and so on, and I mean just crazy real life stuff, or with myself, going through this crazy, I guess you want to call it custody legal battle with my kids, and having that start to come to something which actually, man, it's great. It's great. But the whole time through all of that, whether we're having a good day, a bad day, where we get our balls stepped on, or we get $1 million and we win a bunch of stuff, we are saying, how can I be the best version of myself? How can we hold each other accountable when we can't necessarily carry that torch? It's badass, man. It's cool stuff. And if you're intimidated or pissed off that we only talk about sex too much, you're missing out, because you're not asking the right questions, because there are people that, the guy was asking about financial stuff. There's tons of financial advisors who are part of this group that give that advice. But if you just sit back and you don't take initiative, you don't get shit. So let me tell you something. People, in our culture today, it is fucked. All right. And people always talk about our culture, and let me just say it's not going anywhere. So if our culture's fucked, cool, right? We're not going to go backwards in time. We're not going to revive the 60s. We're not going to revive the Reagan years. We're not going to revive the caveman days, any of that stuff. We need to go from now. But there are some problems that are happening, and we attack the problem with the same problem. We see this shit with feminism and the men's rights groups. We see this shit with, the anti-racist and the racist people, and all these people are pro-gun, the anti-gun, and people talk shit, man. They gossip online and they do all this stupid stuff as if there's some sort of meaning. And the fucking problem where it all comes down to, and definitely go back, and this has been our theme ever since I started in my business in 2006. This has been our fucking theme, right? Even since my early 20s when I started to research this stuff, but I didn't start working until I was 28 or something. But is that human beings want expression. They want to feel fucking important. If you don't feel important, if you feel that you're neglected, if you feel that somehow you're looked over, whether that's in your family, your work, whatever it is, man, you start to get these problems. You start to hit points of confusion. You don't understand. You start to have a sex drive. You start to have a social drive. You start to have ambition. You start to have a need for purpose. All these different things that aren't fully being fulfilled, and it confuses the fuck out of you. And when you get confused or when you get hungry, you start searching for feeding that desperately. Whether you're grinding on some door trying to get in, or you're knocking and your knuckles are bleeding, or you're begging, or you're competing, and you start thinking what life is about, or what your value is about, is this thing that is, man, so far from the truth. All right. Watch my 21 convention speech, The Myth of the Alpha Male, because it's all based on this. All right? I gave it the Tampa convention in 2014, man. It's good. It's good. And we continue that dialogue. See, the thing is now we live in a modern society where we could go an entire day, we could even go an entire lifetime with being a stranger to everybody. But if I want to go throughout my day, we're broadcasting. I'm broadcasting this live on my Facebook group right now. I'm broadcasting it wherever you're watching it, the date you're watching it or whatever, a couple days from actually now. And we're actually live on a call with a bunch of dudes on here. But see, the thing is that I don't have to get to know anybody. In fact, what's the point of putting myself out there? Me, who I am, what I stand for, all these different things, which I'm dying to get out. I'm dying to have a connection with people. I'm dying to have my boss give me validation or people to give me worth or whatever, or to have a sex life or a love life that I see on TV or this image of all these things. I'm dying for that, yet I choose to be a stranger because I'm empowered that way. Right? Because I can talk shit online. I could assert myself. I could be a tough guy. I could win easier than actually going out there in the world. It's funny because, God, this is so, oh man, this is bringing it back. I remember way back in the day when there were all these pickup podcasts and stuff, and they put all this shit out there. I'd be like, man, why aren't you like right-wing radio? And it's funny because now, or maybe not so funny, the culture of that right-wing radio is now like really prevalent in the US. Like it's obviously those people all got fed, but I used to listen to it like crazy. I didn't have any political ties to it on either side. Well, sometimes I did, but I would listen to it because it was so entertaining. I remember listening to this guy, he's still around, Michael Savage. Think of him what you will, but a talented dude. All right. I'm not talking about his politics. I'm talking about his ability to be an entertaining radio host, just talking shit. Right. And his life is even more awesome. It's just more crazy and bizarre. But he would say that today's alpha male is in prison. And you can interpret that in a lot of ways, but one of the things that he went on to explain, which I thought was very wise, is he was like, our culture doesn't have a role for masculinity. It doesn't have a role for that. So there's these dudes, so there's multiple angles to this. There's these dudes that go out and search for masculinity, and it's so against our culture that they break the law. All right. And I'm not telling you to break the law. I'm not saying that there's a good thing, but that's a problem with that. But then even beyond that, our culture doesn't have an outlet for it. So maybe if you're not one of those guys that goes against it, you feel frustrated. You don't see a worth. Our worth is a man, and even as women, is seen in how popular we can be, how much status we can have, how much beauty we can have. All these external things about ourselves. And then we don't look at the internal qualities that we might have that are fucking killing us. And man, when I see these guys over and over again talking about how shitty their life is, how pissed off they are because they are caught jerking off at porn, or they're sick, or they can't work, or they have this disability, or they're depressed, or whatever the fuck it is, man, they got screwed over by their parents, they're in debt, they're fucked, man, whatever it is, man, you gotta get it. Human beings, we're not people that are afraid of pain. And if we go back to that myth of the alpha male speech, look it up. 21 Convention, it's good stuff. Very proud of it. But if we go back to that, our evolution had us always being put in a pigeonhole. We were always challenged. We always had stress. We always had those things put in our face and we lived through it. But how did we live through it? How did millions of years of evolution from primates to man and all this other stuff? Because man, we only got about 10,000 years of this society thing, and even less depending on who you want to talk to. Some people might argue more because at one time there were people in caves and they ate bread 40,000 years ago or whatever. But we haven't had a lot of experience outside of this template that evolved us, that evolved our brains, our social life, our sexual urges, our purpose. It's like bringing up health to a caveman or somebody in an indigenous culture. It's like, well, do I have a broken bone? Am I about to die? Okay, then I'm healthy. What is this concept of health? This concept of the need for purpose. We only have it because we don't have it. This concept for a need for ambition. We only have that because we don't feel it. We feel a void of it. This concept of masculinity. Man, why would you're a man. You have a fucking dick and a ball. You have dick balls. You're different than women. It's so obvious, but we're all searching to fucking define it because there's a void of it. Sexual satisfaction, there's a void of it. Sexual confidence, there's all this shit that we deal with, right? So if we look back at how we evolved, how did we evolve? How did we solve our problems socially from what we know? And of course, nobody was alive back then, but there's indigenous tribes now. There's, tribal cultures that we know some history of through anthropology, but it all points back to we didn't have the status that we have today. We didn't have the luxury. We had dependency on having to know each other, to interact with everybody around us, not just the select few that are going to better us in the workplace. We had to interact. We had to engage. We couldn't hold on to resentment. And why would we want to? And when you think about it, when you learn about it, these things didn't exist. Things like jealousy, in some tribes, modern day today, don't exist, right? Things like holding on to resentment, very different interpretations of them. And then these cultural problems that we have, like addiction. And even if you get into mental disorders, schizophrenia, things like being bipolar, things like that we overdiagnose or maybe we underdiagnose, I don't fucking know. But the thing is when we have a culture where more people are accepted, sure, there are problems. People have mental problems. Those exist, but at a massively lower percentage. People are depressed, but a massively lower percentage. All right. People have issues and of course, Jesus Christ, man, I don't want to go backwards. I like being able to go to the grocery store. I like being able to have choice. But I think what I'm getting at is we need to start being responsible for ourselves and seeing the value of talking to a group of people, just like we did on this call, talking about art, sometimes we'll talk about jujitsu, sometimes we'll talk about gardening, sometimes we'll talk about whatever. Because in that being a part of something, and actually every single guy on this call who's successful, we don't just talk on these calls, we go out there and then make real life friends in front of us, right? We branch out. Why? Because you need to be a part of something. And if you do not have that foundation of being a part of something, you then start to lose your meaning in the world. You then start being a part of the world, but then being unknowingly unsatisfied with shit like your purpose, your passion, your drive, health, your ambition for health, your ambition for women, your drive to have sex, your drive to have pleasure. And then you think you can't get it. And then all of a sudden you're caught in the traps of society, which aren't traps. I mean, they're so obvious, like sugar fucking tastes good. So we eat way too much of it. Porn is awesome and it gets my dick hard. And at any point I can see a woman doing whatever the fuck it is I want. That's pretty fucking cool. These are all things which are no-brainer obvious things. We become afraid of it and we live in fear. And then we constantly are going like, oh my God, how could I manage this thing that we were born to do, that we were born to be? We are so out of fucking touch with that. And that all starts with saying hello, being a part of a group of people. And man, this is here for you. Like what I'd say to this guy, who says his life sucks and, whatever this group was supposed to be about men's development, first off, post something and interact with people. Don't be a stranger. If you're caught in judgment, that means you're not interacting, you're not connecting. But man, it is your responsibility to get out of your fucking hole. And this is what we do. What you want is what we are. And I can guarantee that. You could sit here and split hairs with it, but man, I don't know many other coaching cultures, whatever you want to call it, in the fucking world that do what we do. Sit, unite. Man, at this point, almost 7 days a week, where you could pop on the call anytime. Doesn't matter where you live in the world. If you have an internet connection, well, I've had some shitty internet connections, but if you have an internet connection that is fast enough, you can reach a group of people that if you just shared a little bit about yourself and were a little bit open-minded, God, you'd fucking kick ass. But step one, you're a part of something. You are a part of something. You interact. You don't bypass or negate the side talk, the bullshit talk, the barbershop talk, the passing the time talk, just so that you can get what you want. And that's one of the biggest tragedies of the coaching industry, is selling a dream to people while negating all the shit which is important within you. Your passion, purpose, drive, your sense of identity, your sense of self. You can't have success without that. And so that's what we do. In any case, if you like this stuff, you listen to this podcast, please go to the free stuff link down below. Get involved with what we're doing. If you join our email list, you're only going to find out about the great things that we do and get opportunities like our challenges on Be Social, or our Instant Connection Challenge, or our Diet and Fitness Challenge, or our challenge which has to do with updating your online profile, or our challenge on your primal ambition, your primal drive. These are all things that have to do with the men's experience. You know, man, if you want to be an entrepreneur and start a business, or you want a better career, or you want to feel better about it, we have something for you to chime in, plug into, and get to work. If you don't do that, then you're just making excuses so you can keep talking shit and fucking yourself with your own goddamn dick. All right, I'm out.